up, guys? Mischief Magus here. Alright, so up in the sky, we have the planets. What are they? Giant orbs of stuff. In the PICATRIX by Chris Warnock and his merry band of men, and apparently in PICATRIX, which is what he goes by, the planets, all 7 of them, have forms. Like, this is what they look like. I don't know how they know this, but they do. And this is legit. I got a guy to make 3 pictures of the planets that I like. I'm going to do one for Saturn in like 2 years when I'm a little bit more comfortable and not so fearful of him, but you should still be fearful of Saturn. This goes on to say, and this is the forms of the planets, Book 3, Chapter 3 of PICATRIX. I don't have Book 3 yet. I have the first 2 books. That's about it. The true forms of the planets as given by the second Mercurius in his book to King Alexander, which is called by him the Book of the 7 Planets. And there are conjoined with them the many things which are necessary in this art. The form of Saturn is the form of a black man, wrapped in a green mantle and having the head of a dog holding a falcon in his hand. The form of Jupiter is the form of a man wrapped in fine cloth and seated on a throne. The form of Mars is the form of a man riding a lion, holding in his hand a great lance or spear. The form of the Sun is the form of a man without a beard, beautiful of face, having on his head a crown, and in his hand a lance or spear, and before him one having the head and hands of a man, and the remainder of the body that of a horse, having 4 feet, being turned around, so that its hands and feet are elevated. The form of Venus is the form of a beautiful youth, having in one hand the comb, and in one other hand an apple, and with his hair spread out. The form of Mercury is the form of a naked man, writing on parchment and riding an eagle. The form of the moon is the form of a man riding a hare. These are awfully vague, but it's literally what it says. I wouldn't make this stuff up. But there are more specific ones, and I like these. These are what my pictures were made out of. I didn't make these for Saturn yet. It goes on to say, for the operations of Saturn, make the form of a man elevated in a high throne, on his head a yellow linen cloth, having in his hand a sickle, in the hour of Saturn, when he is in the ascendant, in the stone, sapphire, or turquoise. The virtue of this image is that whoever carries it himself will be able to drink heavily and only die from old age. There's another picture of Saturn where it's like he has the head of a dragon, or a head of a deer, or a stag or something, and he's riding a dragon, and he has a dart and a sickle, and he's got hooves for feet in like green robes. But some of these are like so ancient that I don't know where they come from, but it is interesting. And if you're a good artist and you're interested in the occult like this, I would recommend listening to it and interpreting them your own way, but making sure that, here's an example. Maybe you want to make this a Jupiter one if you have a good Jupiter. I know a couple of you out there have great ones. For the operations of Jupiter, make the figure of a crowned man sitting on a throne with 4 feet, carried by 4 winged men, and the man who is sitting on the throne is raising his hands in prayer or worship. Make it in the hour of Jupiter, when Jupiter is rising in his exaltation, and make it in a clear white stone. I mean, the first part is fine. Here's another one for Mars. The form of Mars, according to the opinion of Mercury, Hermes Trismegistus, is the form of a nude man standing erect on his feet, and before him on the right is a beautiful maiden standing on her feet, which is the form of Venus, and her hair is fastened in the back, and Mars is placing his right hand over her neck, and his left hand is stretched out above her breast, and they are looking at each other. The wise say that this figure has great power and strongly accomplishes great works, and only God can speak of what comes after, and this is its form. Kind of weird. I've done this one. This is one that I have done. The figure of the sun is the image of a woman sitting in a chariot drawn by 4 horses, holding in her right hand a mirror, and in her left hand a scepter, with 7 branched candelabra over her head, made in diamond or white sapphire, when the sun is in his exaltation. Whoever carries this image will seem good to everyone and not be afraid. From the form of Venus, make the image of a seated woman with wings, with her hair braided behind her back, with 2 braids, with 2 boys in her lap, in the hour of Venus when she is exalted in Pisces. In the stone quartz, and he who carries the stone will not suffer loss or injury. So, just ideas of what you could do to draw. Here we go. From the operations of Mercury, make the figure of a single frog on the hour of Mercury, with Mercury rising in an emerald stone. And whoever carries it will offend no one. To the contrary, everyone you meet will speak well of you and say good things about your works. And finally, the moon. From the images of the moon, make the form of a man with the head of a bird holding up a staff, and in his hand holding a branch in bloom, in the hour of the moon, when the moon rising in her exaltation, Taurus. And whoever carries this image on a journey will not be tired, no matter where they go. I love the forms of the planets, because a lot of people are like, well, what do they look like? Who are they? Why are they? The first part of this was really vague, and even so, some parts of it, they tell you what to do and what to make, but they don't go on to say, oh, this is actually what they look like. So you really have to do a bit of digging. It says like, oh, Saturn is a guy and he's a black guy in a green robe or something, but it's like, well, yeah, there's tons of black guys in green robes out there. So you kind of have to, think about what Saturn represents, and you have to kind of work with it. It's difficult. I mean, personally, if I was a great artist, I would make it like a skinny, fat old man with a long beard, and he has a sunken face, and he looks dirty and with raggedy hair, and maybe a loincloth and a staff, and he's like walking in the snow or something. The problem with that is, it's my interpretation of what Saturn is. That would be like me going up to my friend and being like, oh, hey, James, you look like a muscular, chiseled jaw man who plays football. And he's clearly not like that. He's like, I don't know, Spanish or something. And he's like, no, dude, I'm like, not that at all. No, you are. It's like, I can't tell the planet what it looks like. It either looks a certain way or it doesn't. So that's one part of like the occult stuff. It's a sensitive subject because some people like to attribute things to elements that they have no idea what they're talking about. Me, for example, I do that all the time, and it's really humbled me because, well, shit, I can only see as far as my eyes can, and I can't see the spirits, I can't see anything else. So if I were to tell you, oh, make a picture of Saturn where it's an old man. No, Saturn rules old people, but he probably doesn't look like that. As it had just said, he looks completely different. And same way with the sun. I would be like, oh, the sun should be a king sitting on a golden throne. But in this example, it says that Saturn, the sun, is a woman on a chariot being pulled by horses. Like, you can't just take something and say, I'm going to make this count as what it is. This is why the old texts are so important. Somehow these people went through painstaking effort to figure these things out. They probably saw them in visions or something while they were tripping or something, or sleeping, or, I don't know, meditating. and somehow it came to them. And I trust it. So, those are the forms. I guess I could kind of talk about this for a while, because when it comes to the divine, we as humans have a limited perception of what the divine is. We are trying our best to understand what goes on beyond the veil, and we probably will never know as long as we are alive, because that's just how it is. There are some things we get to know and some things we don't. That's why I like astrology, because it takes faith and religion and it blends it into something concrete in a way where we can't understand it, but we can do our best to try and make sense of it in a way that actually does make sense. It's complicated, and if you're really good at it, you can do amazing things. But if you're going to follow modern, you will get nowhere. I had to take that pot shot, but yeah, those are the forms. And if anyone is interested, I can show you the forms of the planets that I have done, or I had commissioned done, which were for the Sun, Jupiter, and Mercury. And like I said, I will be having Saturn done at some point when I'm not a chicken shit about it. So that's it. I'm gonna get some rest. But I hope you guys have enjoyed these videos, and stay tuned.